Grace Winters pressed her forehead against the frozen train window. Outside, two small voices cut through the crowd's laughter. "We want this one, Daddy. We want her." The twin girls pointed straight at Grace, while Ridgewood's townspeople whispered those three words that had followed her across 3 states. Too wide to wed. Her breath fogged the glass. She'd come west to disappear. She hadn't come to be chosen. Before we begin, please subscribe and follow Grace's journey to the very end. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now let's begin. Ridgewood Station, 5 minutes. Grace jerked awake. Her neck ached. 3 days on this train, 3 days running from Pennsylvania from her dead husband's family, from words that still cut like knives. "You killed him, Grace. Worked him to death. What man could survive carrying your burden?" She touched the window. Ice cold. Wyoming stretched beyond the glass, white and unforgiving. The other passengers were standing now, smoothing skirts, pinching color into cheeks. Mail-order brides. Young, pretty, hopeful. Grace was none of those things. "Aren't you getting off?" A blonde girl peered down at her. "Or are you riding to California?" "I'm getting off." "Well?" The girl's nose wrinkled. "Good luck finding anyone desperate enough." The words landed like stones. Grace said nothing. She'd learned silence was safer. The train lurched. Stopped. The brides filed out, giggling, nervous, alive with possibility. Grace waited until they were gone. Then she stood, gripping her carpetbag, and stepped into the cold. The wind hit her first. Then the stairs. Ridgewood Station wasn't much. A platform, a crooked building, and a crowd of men who'd come to claim their brides. Their breath rose in clouds. Their eyes tracked the young women like wolves watching deer. Grace stayed to the side. Invisible. Good. Her cousin Emma worked at the boarding house. Emma had written, "Come west. No one knows you here. You can start over." Grace scanned the crowd. No Emma. A thin man with a clipboard stepped forward. "Miss Sarah Hutchins. Here." The blonde bounced forward. "Mr. Garrett's bride." A tall rancher tipped his hat. Sarah took his arm, beaming. Grace kept searching. Where was Emma? Miss Catherine Moore. Present. Another bride claimed. Another rancher smiling. Miss Eleanor Price. That's me. And just like that, the brides were gone, paired off, led away. The crowd began dispersing. Grace's chest tightened. "Excuse me." She approached the clipboard man. "I'm looking for Emma Foster. She works for Foster." He frowned. "Emma died. Pneumonia. Last month." The world stopped. "Dead." "Afraid so. You family." "Cousin." "Condolences." He walked away. Grace stood there, snow caught in her hair. Emma. The only person who'd said, "Come home." The only person who'd written, "You're not what they say you are." Gone. "Who's that?" A woman's voice carried across the platform. "She wasn't on the list." Maybe she's lost. Or maybe she thought she could find some desperate fool to take her. Laughter rippled through the remaining crowd. Grace kept her eyes down. Just walk. Find the boarding house. Figure something out. A man blocked her path. "We don't need charity cases here." "I'm not asking for charity," Grace said quietly. "I have money." "That so?" A woman in a fur collar stepped closer. Sharp eyes, sharper smile. "Where you planning to stay?" "The boarding house." "Molly's place." The woman laughed. "She won't take you? She's particular." "I just need—" "What you need," the man interrupted, "is to get back on that train." Grace's throat closed. Not again. She couldn't do this again. "Please, my cousin—" "Emma's dead," the woman said. "And she never mentioned family coming. Makes a person wonder why." The circle was tightening. More faces, more judgment. "Look at her. Too wide to wed." Maybe she's here for the livestock auction. Laughter exploded. Grace took a step back. The train was still there. She could get back on. She could, "We want this one, Daddy." Every head turned. Two little girls burst through the crowd. Identical. Dark braids. Bright blue coats. They couldn't have been more than 6. They ran straight past the pretty brides, past the respectable townspeople, straight to Grace. They stopped, stared up with wide, serious eyes. "She's perfect," the first girl whispered. "She looks like Mama," the second said. Grace's voice cracked. "I think you've made a mistake." "No mistake." The first girl grabbed her hand. Small fingers. Warm mitten. "You're the one." "Girls!" The voice cut through the noise like a blade through snow. The crowd parted. A man stepped forward. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dark coat dusted with white. His hat was pulled low, shadowing his face, but Grace saw his jaw. Hard. Set. The jaw of a man who didn't explain himself. He walked like the ground belonged to him. He stopped in front of his daughters. Looked down. Then up at Grace. His eyes were gray. Winter steel. "Lucy," he said, low, rough. "You can't just—" "But we prayed, Daddy." The first girl's voice trembled. "We prayed for someone kind." "Rose, please." Lucy looked up at him. "She needs us." Something flickered in the man's face. Quick. Gone. Like pain buried deep. He looked at Grace. Really looked. Measuring. "You got somewhere to go?" Grace's voice was barely there. "No." "You got family here." "She's dead." His jaw tightened. He glanced at his daughters. They stared up with identical pleading. He exhaled. Long, heavy. A man making a decision that would cost him. "Get your bag." Grace blinked. "What?" "Your bag. You're coming with us." "Jake." The woman in the fur collar stepped forward. "You can't be serious." "Mind your business, Abigail. Those girls need a proper influence, not some—" "I said mind your business." His voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Abigail's mouth snapped shut, but her eyes promised consequences. Lucy and Rose each grabbed one of Grace's hands. Their mittens were damp. Warm. "Come on," Lucy said. "Our wagon's right there." "We have blankets," Rose added. "You won't be cold." Grace let them pull her forward. This wasn't real. Couldn't be. Behind her, the whispers started. "He's lost his mind. Those poor girls. She'll ruin them. Someone should tell the Reverend." Jake stopped at a wagon. 2 horses stamped and snorted, breath steaming. He took Grace's bag, tossed it in the back. "Get in." The twins scrambled up, patting the space between them. "Sit here." Grace climbed up. Her hands shook. The twins pressed close, one on each side. Jake swung onto the driver's seat. The man with the clipboard hurried forward. "Jake, you can't just take her. She's not registered. We don't know anything about her." "Don't need to." "But the law—" "Law says a man can hire whoever he wants. That ain't your concern, Fred." "It's the town's concern if—" Jake snapped the reins. The wagon lurched forward. Grace twisted to look back. The crowd stood frozen, watching. Their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. She'd seen that look before. At Thomas's funeral. At every town along the way. "Don't mind them," Lucy said, squeezing Grace's hand. "They're just mean." Grace turned forward. Snow was falling harder now. The wagon creaked. The horses' hooves crunched through drifts. She glanced at Jake's back, rigid, silent. His shoulders carried weight she recognized. Grief. "What's your name?" Lucy asked. "Grace." "Grace." Lucy smiled. "That's pretty." "Are you sad?" Rose asked. Grace's throat burned. "A little." "That's okay," Rose said. "Daddy's sad too, but he doesn't say." Jake's shoulders stiffened. "Hush, Rose," Lucy whispered. But Rose kept going. Mama died 2 winters ago. Daddy says she's with the angels, but we just miss her. I'm sorry, Grace whispered. Do you miss people too? Rose asked. Grace closed her eyes. Thomas's face. Pale, turning away. Her mother-in-law's voice. You're a curse, Grace. Everything you touch dies. Yes, she said. I do. Then you understand, Lucy said matter of fact. That's good. The wagon rolled on. Snow muffled everything. The world felt small. Just this wagon, these girls, this silent man and Grace in the middle of it all. How far is your ranch? Grace asked. 5 miles, Jake said. First words since they'd left. It's the best ranch, Lucy said. We have horses and cows and chickens. The chickens are mean, Rose added. But Daddy says they're just protecting their eggs. Like Daddy protects us, Lucy said. Jake said nothing, but his shoulders shifted. Just slightly. Grace studied the back of his head. The hat, the coat collar turned up against the wind. He was a stranger. She was alone with the stranger and his children heading to a place she'd never seen, with no plan, no safety, no guarantee of anything. She should have been terrified. But the twins' hands were warm in hers, and for the first time in months, Grace wasn't completely alone. The ranch appeared through the snow. Not gradually, just suddenly there. A house, a barn, fences half buried in drifts. Smoke rose from the chimney. Thin, gray, alive. Jake pulled the wagon to a stop, climbed down, grabbed Grace's bag without a word and carried it inside. The twins jumped down, pulling Grace with them. Come see! Come see! Inside the house was dim, cold. The fire had burned low. Dishes sat in the basin crusted over. A child's doll lay on the floor. A man's coat hung crooked on a peg. It was a house that had stopped being a home. Jake set the bag down. Room's upstairs, second door on the left. Thank you. He didn't look at her. Just walked to the fireplace, knelt, began building up the fire. His movements were efficient, practiced, lonely. Are you hungry? Rose asked Grace. We have bread. I can cook, Grace said quickly. If you have ingredients. You don't have to, Jake said, still not looking at her. I want to. He paused, his hand stilled on a log. You just got here. I know. He turned then. Those gray eyes found hers. You don't owe us anything. I know that too. They stared at each other. The twins watched silent. Then Jake nodded once. Sharp. Final. Kitchen's through there. Do what you want. He stood, walked past her, and went outside. The door closed with a soft thud. Lucy grinned. He likes you. He doesn't even know me. He let you stay, Rose said. Daddy doesn't let anyone stay. Grace looked around. The cold kitchen, the dying fire, the 2 little girls with hope in their eyes. Outside, through the window, she saw Jake standing in the snow. Just standing, looking at nothing, or maybe looking at everything he'd lost. Grace set her bag down. All right, let's see what we can make for supper. Really? Lucy's face lit up. Really? The twins led her to the kitchen. It was small, sparse, but there was flour, dried beans, a bit of salt pork. Enough. Grace rolled up her sleeves. Her hands knew what to do. They always had. When words failed, when love wasn't enough, when she couldn't fix anything else, her hands could still make bread. She worked in silence. The twins watched, fascinated. Can we help? Lucy asked. You can set the table. They scrambled to obey, chattering to each other, their voices filling the empty house with something it hadn't heard in a long time. Life. Grace kneaded the dough. Push, fold. Push, fold. The rhythm steadied her. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the fire began to warm. She'd come west to disappear. But standing in this cold kitchen with these two girls and their grieving father just beyond the door, Grace wondered if maybe, just maybe, she'd come west to be found. The door opened. Jake stepped in snow on his shoulders. He stopped when he saw the table. Set. Clean. Bread rising by the fire. Beans simmering. He looked at Grace. She looked back. "Supper'll be ready soon," she said. He nodded. Once. Then hung his hat on the peg and sat down. The twins climbed into their chairs, swinging their legs, grinning at each other like they'd won something. Grace turned back to the stove. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, for the first time in 2 years, Jake Hartford's house smelled like home. And Grace Winters, who'd been called a burden, a curse, too much, too wide, too broken to love, felt something she'd almost forgotten. Purpose. Grace woke before dawn. The room was dark and cold, her breath visible in the air. She lay still for a moment, listening. The house was silent. Outside, wind rattled the windows. She dressed quickly, her fingers clumsy with cold, and made her way downstairs. The fire had died to embers. She built it back up, watching the flames catch and spread. The warmth felt like permission. The kitchen was how she'd left it. Clean. Ordered. But empty. She found coffee ground at set water to boil. Her hands moved without thought. This was what she knew. This was what she could do. By the time the sun started to rise pale and weak through the snow, Grace had bread dough rising, porridge simmering, and coffee ready. The stairs creaked. Jake appeared already dressed, hat in hand. He stopped when he saw her. "You're up early," he said. "So are you." He walked to the table, poured himself coffee. Drank it black. His eyes were shadowed like he hadn't slept. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I know." He looked at her then. Really looked. Like he was trying to figure something out. "You always this stubborn?" "Yes." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Good to know." He finished his coffee, set the cup down. "I've got work. Cattle need feeding. Fences need checking. I'll manage here." He nodded, put on his hat, and walked out into the cold. Grace stood at the window, watching him trudge through the snow toward the barn. His shoulders were hunched against the wind. Alone. She turned back to the kitchen. The twins came down an hour later, rubbing sleep from their eyes. They stopped when they saw the table. Set. Food waiting. "You made breakfast." Lucy's eyes went wide. "I did." "Real breakfast?" Rose asked. "What's real breakfast?" "Porridge that doesn't have lumps," Lucy said. "And bread that's soft." Grace's chest tightened. "Sit down." They ate like they were starving. Not for food, but for care. For someone noticing them. For warmth. "This is good," Rose said, mouthful. "Don't talk with your mouth full," Lucy said, then immediately did the same thing. "But it really is good." Grace sat with them, not eating, just watching. Their faces. Their joy over something so simple. "Does your daddy usually make breakfast?" she asked. "Sometimes," Lucy said. "But he forgets things. Like salt. Or cooking it all the way." "He tries," Rose added, quickly loyal. "He just has a lot to do." "I'm sure he does." "Do you know how to braid hair?" Lucy asked suddenly. Grace blinked at the shift. "I do." "Mama used to braid our hair," Rose said. "But Daddy doesn't know how. He just ties it back." "Would you like me to braid it?" Both girls nodded so hard, Grace almost smiled. After breakfast, she sat them down one at a time and braided their hair. Her fingers remembered the pattern. Over, under, pull tight. She'd done this for herself 1,000 times. Never for anyone else. "There," she said, finishing Lucy's braid. "How's that?" Lucy ran to the cracked mirror hanging by the door. Gasped. "Rose, look." "We match." Rose joined her, and they stood there staring at themselves, touching their braids like they were made of gold. "Mama used to make them just like this," Rose whispered. Grace's throat closed. "I'm glad." The door opened. Jake stepped in, stamping snow off his boots. He looked at his daughters and stopped. "Your hair," he said. "Grace did it." Lucy spun around. "Look, Daddy." He looked. His face didn't change, but something in his eyes did. Something that looked like grief and gratitude tangled together. "It's nice," he said quietly. The girls beamed. Jake's eyes found Grace's, held for a moment. Then he turned away. "I'm going back out. Storm's coming tonight. I need to secure the barn." "Do you need help?" Grace asked. "No. I can work." "I know you can." He paused at the door. "But you've done enough today." He left before she could argue. Lucy tugged Grace's sleeve. "He's bad at saying thank you." "I noticed." "But he means it," Rose said. "He just doesn't know how to say things anymore. Not since Mama died." Grace knelt down to their level. "What was your mama like?" The twins looked at each other. Some silent twin language passed between them. "She was soft," Lucy said finally. Her voice and her hands. Everything was soft. "She smelled like lavender," Rose added. "And she sang, all the time, even when she was sad." "Daddy doesn't sing anymore," Lucy said. "Does he ever talk about her?" Grace asked. Both girls shook their heads. "He keeps her things in a trunk," Rose said. "In his room. We're not supposed to know, but we do." "He looks at them sometimes," Lucy whispered. "Late at night, when he thinks we're sleeping." Grace's heart cracked a little more. He loved her very much. "He still does," Rose said. "That's why he can't talk about her." These children understood too much, had lost too much. Were trying so hard to be grown when they should still be allowed to be small. "Well," Grace said, standing, "how about you two help me with the mending? I saw a basket full." "Really?" Lucy perked up. "Daddy never lets us help with mending. He says we'll prick our fingers." "Then we'll be careful." They spent the afternoon sewing. Grace showed them simple stitches, how to thread a needle, how to tie off the end. Their fingers were clumsy, their stitches crooked, but they tried so hard. Outside, the sky grew darker. The wind picked up. Jake came in at dusk, covered in snow. He looked exhausted. "Storm's here," he said. "It'll be a bad one." "I'll make supper," Grace said. "You don't—" "I know. I will anyway." He almost smiled again. Almost. They ate together. Stew made from the salt pork and dried vegetables Grace had found in the cellar. The twins chattered about their day, about learning to sew, about their braids. Jake listened, said little, but his eyes kept drifting to Grace. After supper, the twins begged for a story. Grace hesitated. "I don't know many stories." "Make one up," Lucy said. "Please." So Grace did. She told them about a girl who lived in a valley where winter never ended, and how she learned that cold wasn't cruel, just honest. That ice could be beautiful. That survival was its own kind of magic. The twins listened rapt. Even Jake, sitting by the fire, seemed to be listening. When she finished, Rose yawned. "That was a good story." "Bedtime," Jake said. "Can Grace tuck us in?" Lucy asked. Jake looked at Grace. "If she wants to." "I'd like that," Grace said. She followed them upstairs to their small room. 2 narrow beds, 2 thin quilts. She tucked them in one at a time. "Grace," Rose whispered, "will you stay for a long time?" Grace's breath caught. "I don't know." "We want you to," Lucy said. "We prayed for you. That means you're supposed to be here." "Maybe," Grace said softly. "We'll see." She kissed their foreheads without thinking, then froze. But they just smiled, snuggled deeper into their blankets. Good night, Grace whispered. Good night. She stepped out of their room and nearly collided with Jake. He'd been standing in the hallway, listening. Sorry, she said. They like you. I like them too. He looked at her. The lamplight made shadows on his face. Why'd you come west? Really? Grace's hands clenched. My husband died. His family blamed me, said I was too much, too heavy, that I'd worked him to death just by existing. Jake's jaw tightened. That's a lie. Maybe, but they believed it. Everyone believed it. So I left. And your own family. Didn't want me either. He was quiet for a long moment. My wife died 2 years ago. Accident with a horse. I was out on the range. By the time I got back, she was already gone. I'm sorry. Everyone says that. His voice was rough. But sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't help my girls stop looking for her in every woman's face. Grace met his eyes. Is that what they're doing with me? Maybe. He looked away. Or maybe they just recognize someone who knows what it's like to be cast out. Is that what you think I am, cast out? Aren't you? Yes, she said quietly. I suppose I am. He nodded. Then you understand. This ranch these girls me. We're all cast out in our own way. The town tolerates us because they have to. But they don't forget. They don't forgive. Forgive what? Existing outside their rules. He turned toward his room. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard work. Jake. He stopped. Thank you for taking me in. He didn't turn around. Thank my daughters. They're the ones who chose you. He disappeared into his room, closing the door softly. Grace stood alone in the dark hallway, listening to the storm howl outside. The next morning, Grace woke to Lucy shaking her shoulder. Grace, wake up. What's wrong? Daddy's sick. Grace sat up fast. What? He's burning up, Rose said from the doorway. And he won't get out of bed. Grace pulled on her dress and hurried to Jake's room. The door was ajar. She pushed it open. Jake lay in bed still fully dressed except for his boots. His face was flushed sweat beading on his forehead. His eyes were closed. Jake. Grace moved closer. His eyes opened, unfocused. Sarah. Grace's stomach dropped. No, it's Grace. Sarah. His voice was rough, desperate. I'm sorry. I should have been here. I should have... Jake, you're burning up. You have a fever. He tried to sit up, collapsed back. The cattle. I need to... You need to stay in bed. Can't. Work needs. I'll do it. He blinked at her, confused. You... Tell me what needs to be done. I'll do it. You can't. Storm's too bad. And you're... Don't... Grace said sharply. Don't tell me what I can't do. He stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. Feed the cattle. Check the water troughs. Make sure they're not frozen solid. Check the barn. Make sure the roof's holding. All right. Grace. He grabbed her wrist. His hand was hot. It's dangerous. If you get lost in the snow... I won't. Promise me. If it's too much, you'll come back. I promise. She pulled away, but his eyes held hers for a moment longer. Be careful. I will. Downstairs, the twins were waiting, worried. Is Daddy dying? Rose asked, voice trembling. No, Grace said firmly. He has a fever. He needs rest. But the ranch, I'll take care of it. You... Lucy's eyes went wide. Me. But you're a lady. Grace almost laughed. Ladies can work, Lucy. Now I need you two to stay inside. Keep the fire going. If your daddy wakes up, give him water. Can you do that? Both girls nodded solemn. Grace pulled on every warm thing she could find. Jake's extra coat too big, but lined with wool. His gloves. A scarf. Then she stepped out into the storm. The wind hit her like a wall. Snow swirled so thick she could barely see the barn. She put her head down and walked. The barn was dark and warm, filled with the smell of hay and animals. Horses stamped in their stalls. Cattle lowed restless. Grace found the feed, started distributing it. The work was hard. The bags were heavy. Her arms ached. But she kept going. She checked the water troughs. Frozen solid. She found an axe broke through the ice. Her hands were numb by the time she finished. The roof was holding, but snow was piling up fast. She'd have to come back out later, clear it off. She worked for hours, feeding, watering, checking. Her body screamed at her to stop. She didn't. When she finally stumbled back to the house, her face was numb, her hands barely working. The twins met her at the door. "You did it," Lucy breathed. Grace collapsed into a chair. "Is your daddy awake? He's asking for you," Rose said. Grace forced herself up, climbed the stairs. Jake was sitting up now, color back in his face. "You did it," he said. "I did. In this storm." "Yes." He shook his head, something like wonder in his eyes. "You're stronger than you look." "I have to be." He held her gaze. "Most people would have let the cattle freeze. I'm not most people." "No," he said quietly. "You're not." That night, Jake came downstairs for supper. He was still weak, moving slow, but he was up. "You should be in bed," Grace said. "I'm fine." "You're not." "Grace." He sat down heavily. "I need to say something." She waited. "I judged you," he said. "At the station, when the girls chose you. I thought they were being foolish. I thought you'd be a burden." Grace's hands clenched in her lap. "I was wrong," he continued. "You saved my ranch today. You saved my cattle. You took care of my girls. You asked for nothing, expected nothing. You just worked. That's all I know how to do. It's more than that." His eyes were intense. "You're more than that." Grace's throat burned. Don't what? Don't make me into something I'm not. I'm just someone trying to survive." "That's all any of us are doing," Jake said. "But you're doing it with more grace than anyone I've ever met. And I don't mean your name, I mean the real thing." Tears stung Grace's eyes. She turned away. "I should check on the girls." "Grace, please, don't." He stood, walked over to her. Didn't touch her, but stood close enough that she could feel his warmth. "All right," he said softly. "But you should know. My daughters weren't wrong about you, and neither was I in the end." He walked past her back upstairs. Grace stood alone in the kitchen, tears finally falling, and wondered how long she could keep her heart locked away when these people kept trying to find the key. The days turned into a week. The storm passed. Jake recovered. But something had shifted. He watched her now, not suspiciously, but with curiosity, with something that looked like respect. They worked together. He showed her how to mend the fences properly, how to check the cattle for sickness, how to read the weather in the sky. She showed him how to make bread that didn't turn to stone, how to sew a button so it wouldn't fall off, how to braid his daughter's hair. The twins blossomed. They laughed more, sang more, started to look less like children who'd lost everything and more like children who were learning to hope again. One evening, after the girls were in bed, Jake and Grace sat by the fire. The silence between them was comfortable now. Not awkward, just peaceful. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said. "Yes." "Why didn't you fight back at the station, when they were mocking you?" Grace was quiet for a long time. "Because I've learned that fighting back just makes it worse. People who want to hurt you, they'll find a way. The only thing you can control is how much you let them see it land." That's a hard way to live. "It's the only way I know." Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "My wife, Sarah, She was soft. Like the girls said, kind, gentle, the opposite of me. Tell me about her. He was quiet. Then slowly he started talking. About how they'd met, how she'd laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny, how she'd made this house feel warm, how she'd died trying to protect the cattle from a spooked horse, and how he'd found her too late. I was angry for a long time, he said. At God, at myself, at her for being so damn brave she got herself killed. You're allowed to be angry. The Reverend said I should forgive, move on, find another wife, give the girls a mother. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. He looked at her. I thought I wanted to be left alone, to raise my girls in peace. But then you showed up, and the house started feeling different. Grace's heart hammered. Jake, I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable, he interrupted. I'm saying it because you should know. You're not a burden. You're not too much. You're exactly right. You don't know me. I know enough. I'm a widow who couldn't save her husband. You're a woman who saved my ranch in a blizzard, Jake said firmly. You're a woman my daughters love. You're a woman who works harder than any man I know. That's who you are. Grace stood up too fast. I should go to bed. Grace. Good night, Jake. She fled upstairs, her heart racing. She couldn't do this. Couldn't let herself hope. Couldn't let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd found a place where she was wanted. Because every time she'd believed that before, she'd been wrong. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around her. Downstairs, she heard Jake banking the fire, his footsteps on the stairs, his door closing. And she wondered how long she could keep running from the thing she wanted most, to belong. Another week passed. Grace fell into the rhythm of the ranch. Wake before dawn, make breakfast, work all day, make supper, put the girls to bed, sit with Jake by the fire. They talked more now. About small things. The weather, the cattle, the girls' laughter. But sometimes they talked about bigger things. About loss. About fear. About the strange ache of wanting something you were afraid to name. One afternoon, Grace was in the garden trying to clear space for spring planting. The snow had melted enough to see the frozen ground beneath. Lucy and Rose were helping or trying to. Mostly they were throwing snowballs at each other. Girls, Grace called. I need you to. A snowball hit her square in the back. She turned slowly. Lucy and Rose stood there, eyes wide, trying not to giggle. Did you just throw a snowball at me? It was an accident, Lucy said unconvincingly. A very accidental accident, Rose added. Grace bent down, scooped up snow, packed it tight. The twins squealed and ran. Grace chased them laughing, throwing snowballs. They shrieked with joy, running in circles, falling in the snow, laughing so hard they couldn't breathe. Grace couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like this. Couldn't remember the last time joy felt possible. What's all this? She turned. Jake stood on the porch watching them. His face was soft, almost smiling. They started it, Grace said, breathless. Did not, Lucy shouted. Did too. Grace laughed. Jake shook his head, but he was smiling now, really smiling. Well, don't let me stop you. He started to turn away, but Rose shouted, Get him! Before Grace could protest, the twins grabbed handfuls of snow and charged their father. Jake's eyes went wide. Now wait a minute. They pelted him with snow. He stood there shocked, then laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty, like he'd forgotten how. Grace watched him, her heart full to bursting. You just going to stand there? Jake called to her. I wasn't planning to join. A snowball hit her shoulder. She looked at Jake. He grinned already, packing another one. Oh, you're going to regret that, Grace said. And then it was chaos. All four of them throwing snow, laughing, chasing each other around the yard. The twins were shrieking. Jake was laughing. And Grace felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. They finally collapsed in the snow, breathless and cold and happy. "That was fun," Rose said, panting. "That was the best," Lucy agreed. Jake sat up, brushing snow off his coat. His eyes found Grace's. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For reminding us how to be happy." Grace's throat closed. "I think you did that for me too." They sat there in the snow, the four of them, and something clicked into place. Something that felt like family. That night, after the girls were asleep, Jake sat with Grace by the fire. "I need to ask you something," he said. "All right." "Will you stay permanently?" Grace's heart stopped. "What?" "The girls need you. I need you. The ranch needs you." He paused. "I'm asking you to stay, as part of this family." "Jake, I can't just—" "Why not?" "Because people will talk. The town already hates me. If I stay here unmarried, living under your roof, then marry me." Grace stared at him. "What? Marry me?" Jake said again. "Not for love, not yet, but for protection, for legitimacy, for the girls." "That's not—" "I know it's not romantic," he interrupted. "I know you deserve better. But I can give you safety, respect, a home, and maybe someday more than that." Grace's hands trembled. "You don't love me." "No," he said honestly. "But I respect you, I trust you, and I think given time I could." "That's not enough. It's more than most people get." He was right. She knew he was right. But the thought of marrying without love again, of being bound to someone who might never see her the way she wanted to be seen. "I need time," she whispered. "Take all you need," Jake said. "But Grace, think about it. Really think about it. Because I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a life." He stood, left her alone by the fire. Grace sat there staring into the flames, her heart at war with her head. She'd come west to disappear. But Jake was offering her the chance to reappear, to be seen, to be chosen. The question was she brave enough to say yes, Moinsean? Grace didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Jake's words running through her mind on an endless loop. "Marry me, not for love, not yet, but for protection." She'd been married before, to Thomas. A marriage arranged by her parents, a transaction disguised as tradition. He'd been kind at first, then distant, then resentful. Every day she'd felt herself becoming smaller, quieter, less. And when he died, his family had made it clear she was the reason. Too much woman, too much weight, too much burden. But Jake wasn't offering her that kind of marriage. Was he? She turned over, pulled the quilt tighter. Outside, the wind had picked up again. Another storm coming. The question wasn't whether Jake's offer made sense. It did. The town would never accept her living here unmarried. The whispers would turn to accusations. The reverend would get involved. Jake could lose custody of his daughters. The question was whether Grace could survive another marriage where she wasn't loved. Morning came too soon. Grace dressed in the dark and went downstairs. Jake was already up, sitting at the table with coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "Morning," he said. "Morning." They didn't talk about the proposal. Grace made breakfast. Jake drank his coffee. The twins came down still sleepy and chattered about a dream Rose had about flying horses. Normal. Everything felt almost normal, except for the weight pressing on Grace's chest. After breakfast, Jake went out to the barn. Grace cleaned up her hands, moving automatically. The twins settled by the fire with their dolls. "Grace," Lucy looked up. "Are you sad again?" Grace paused, dish towel in hand. "Why do you think I'm sad?" "You have that look," Rose said. "Like Daddy gets sometimes. Like you're here but also far away." These children saw too much. "I'm just thinking," Grace said. "About what?" Lucy asked. Grace sat down with them. Do you two remember when you chose me at the station? Both girls nodded. Why did you choose me? Grace asked. Really? Lucy and Rose looked at each other. That twin language again. Because you looked like you needed us, Rose said finally. And we needed you, Lucy added. But you didn't know me. We knew enough, Lucy said with the absolute certainty only children possess. We knew you were supposed to be ours. Grace's throat tightened. What if I'm not? What if I'm just someone passing through? Are you? Rose's eyes went wide. Are you leaving? No, Grace stopped. I'm trying to figure out where I belong. You belong here, Lucy said firmly. With us. With Daddy too, Rose added. He needs you. He just doesn't know how to say it right. How do you know what your daddy needs? Because we watch him, Lucy said. He's been sad for so long, but since you came, he's different. He smiles now. He laughs. He threw snowballs, Rose said like this was irrefutable proof of transformation. Grace couldn't help but smile. He did, didn't he? So you can't leave, Lucy said. You have to stay, forever. Forever's a long time. That's the point, Rose said. Grace pulled them both close, held them tight. They smelled like wood smoke and soap and childhood. I'll think about it, I promise. Don't think too long, Lucy whispered. Daddy's not good at waiting. That afternoon, Grace was in the root cellar taking inventory of what remained of the winter stores when she heard horses. Multiple horses. She climbed up to find 3 riders approaching the house. Jake was already coming out of the barn, his posture defensive. Grace recognized the woman in front. Abigail Fletcher from the station, the one who'd tried to shame Jake into sending Grace away. Stay inside, Jake called to Grace. No. He shot her a look but didn't argue. Grace walked to stand beside him. United. Abigail dismounted, followed by 2 men. One was the Reverend Grace had seen at the station. The other was a thin man with a badge pinned to his coat. Jake, Abigail said, her voice dripping false concern. We need to talk. Then talk. It's about your living situation. She glanced at Grace with barely concealed contempt. It's come to our attention that this woman has been residing in your home for several weeks now. Unchaperoned, unmarried. That's my business, Jake said flatly. It's the community's business, the Reverend interjected. We have standards, morals. We can't simply ignore. You ignored plenty when Sarah died. Jake interrupted, his voice hard. When I was drowning and my girls were hungry and this house was falling apart, where was the community then? That's not fair, the Reverend said. Isn't it? Not one of you came to help. Not one casserole, not one offer. You all stood back and watched us barely survive. But now you care. Now you have opinions. The situation was different, Abigail said. You were grieving. But now you've installed a woman of questionable character. Careful. Jake's voice dropped to something dangerous. Very careful what you say next. The man with the badge stepped forward. Mr. Hartford, I'm Marshall Webb. I don't want trouble, but Mrs. Fletcher has filed a complaint. She's concerned about the welfare of your daughters. My daughters are fine. Be that as it may, the law requires. Grace. 2 small voices called from the house. Lucy and Rose burst out onto the porch. Grace, we finished the... They stopped when they saw the visitors. Girls inside, Jake said. But Daddy. Inside, now. They obeyed reluctantly, but Grace could see their faces pressed against the window. Those poor children, Abigail said loud enough for Grace to hear. Exposed to such an influence. Something inside Grace snapped. What influence would that be? Grace stepped forward. The influence of someone who feeds them, who teaches them to read and sew and braid their hair, who tucks them in at night and tells them stories. The influence, Abigail said coldly, of a woman living in sin. I'm not living in sin. I'm working. There's a difference. Is there? An unmarried woman alone with a man under his roof sharing his... We don't share anything, Jake cut in. She has her own room. I have mine. The girls are chaperoned at all times. That's not what people are saying, Abigail countered. Then people are liars. The marshal cleared his throat. Mr. Hartford, I understand your position, but Mrs. Fletcher is within her rights to voice concerns. If you want this to go away, the simplest solution would be marriage, the Reverend finished. Make an honest woman of her. Legitimize the situation. Grace's hands clenched. Make an honest woman of her. Like she was somehow dishonest now. Like her worth depended on a man's name. And if we don't, Jake asked, voice deadly quiet, then we'll have to consider whether this is an appropriate environment for your daughters, the marshal said. I don't want to, but if there's a formal complaint, you'd take my children. Jake's voice shook. Over this. We'd evaluate the situation, the Reverend said, for their spiritual well-being. Grace saw red. Their spiritual well-being, they're fed, they're warm, they're loved. What more do they need? A proper mother, Abigail said. Not some woman who showed up out of nowhere with no references, no family, nothing but the clothes on her back. Better that than a woman who shows up with a mob, Grace shot back. You want to talk about character. You rode out here to threaten a man's family because you can't stand the fact that he chose to help someone you deemed unworthy. That says more about your character than mine. Abigail's face flushed. How dare you? Enough. Jake's voice cut through. You want us married, fine. We'll marry. Grace's head snapped toward him. Jake, next Sunday. Jake continued. In town. Public. Legitimate. That satisfy you? The marshal looked relieved. That would resolve the issue, yes. Then consider it resolved. Jake turned his back on them. Now get off my land. Jake, the Reverend started. I said get off my land. The three visitors exchanged glances. Then slowly they mounted their horses. We'll expect you at the church Sunday morning, the Reverend called. 10 o'clock sharp. They rode off. Jake stood there, shoulders rigid, watching until they disappeared over the hill. Then he turned to Grace. His face was unreadable. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For deciding that without asking you. For forcing your hand. Grace's laugh was bitter. You didn't force anything. They did. Still, it's not fair to you. Fair? Grace shook her head. Nothing about this is fair. But it's necessary. For the girls? Not just for the girls. She looked at him. What? I want you to stay, Jake said quietly. Not because I have to. Because I choose to. The same way my daughters chose you. The same way you chose to stay when you could have run. Jake, I know it's not love. Not yet. But it's choice. That has to count for something. Grace's eyes burned. It does. But I need you to understand something. I won't be owned. I won't be made small again. If we do this, I need to know I'm not just another burden you're shouldering. You're not a burden, Jake said fiercely. You're the opposite. You're what's holding us together. For now. But what about when... Grace. He stepped closer. I can't promise you love. I can't promise it'll be easy. But I can promise you respect, partnership, a home where you're valued. Is that enough? Was it? Could it be? Grace thought about the twins' faces pressed against the window. Thought about the ranch, the work, the way her hands knew what to do here. Thought about Jake, throwing snowballs, laughing, coming back to life. Thought about herself. How she felt less invisible every day. How the weight on her chest had started to lift. Yes, she whispered. It's enough. Jake exhaled. Relief washed over his face. Then we'll do this right. I'll go to town tomorrow, get a license. We'll marry Sunday. In front of everyone. In front of everyone, he confirmed. Let them see. Let them know you're here to stay. Grace nodded. Her hands were shaking. Jake reached out, hesitated. Can I? he asked. She nodded again. He took her hands in his. They were rough, calloused, warm, real. "We'll figure this out," he said. "Together." "Together," Grace echoed. The door burst open. The twins tumbled out. "Are you getting married?" Lucy shouted. "Were you listening?" Jake asked. "Yes," Rose said, unrepentant. "Are you really?" Jake looked at Grace. She looked back. And despite everything, despite the fear and uncertainty, she smiled. "Yes," she said. "Really." The twins screamed with joy, launched themselves at both adults. Jake caught them laughing. Grace found herself pulled into the embrace, surrounded by arms and warmth, and something that felt dangerously close to belonging. The next few days passed in a blur. Jake rode to town, returned with a marriage license and grim news. "The whole town knows," he said, hanging up his coat. Abigail made sure of it. "What are they saying?" "That I'm desperate, that you trapped me, that the girls will regret this." Grace's stomach churned. "Maybe we should—" "No." Jake's voice was firm. "We're doing this. Let them say what they want." But Grace saw the tension in his shoulders, heard the doubt he wouldn't voice. That night, after the girls were asleep, Grace found Jake on the porch. He was staring out at the dark prairie, his breath fogging in the cold air. "You're having second thoughts," Grace said. "No. Don't lie to me." He turned to face her. "I'm not having second thoughts about you. I'm having second thoughts about putting you through this. The town won't be kind." "They weren't kind before." "This is different. This is public. Permanent. Once we do this, there's no taking it back." "I know." "And you're still willing?" Grace stepped closer. "Jake, I've been called every name there is. I've been blamed for things I didn't do. I've been cast out by my own blood. Your town can't hurt me worse than I've already been hurt. They can try. Let them." Grace's voice strengthened. "I survived everything else. I'll survive this too. And maybe, just maybe, we'll prove them wrong." Jake's eyes searched her face. "You're braver than you know." "So are you." He almost smiled. "We're both fools then." "Probably." They stood there in the cold, not touching, but together. Above them, stars scattered across the black sky. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. "Grace," Jake said quietly. "Yes." "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying. For fighting. For choosing us." Grace's throat tightened. "You chose me first. My daughters chose you. I just had the good sense to listen. And now I'm choosing you too," Jake said. "Every day. For as long as you'll have me." It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was something. A promise. A foundation. "Then I guess we're doing this," Grace said. "I guess we are." Sunday morning arrived cold and clear. Grace woke early, her stomach in knots. The twins helped her dress, their excitement almost overwhelming. "You look beautiful," Lucy breathed. Grace looked at herself in the cracked mirror. She was wearing the only good dress she owned. Plain, dark blue, nothing special. But the twins had woven wildflowers into her hair, and their love made her feel less plain. "Do I look like a bride?" Grace asked. "You look like our mama," Rose said. Then quickly, "Not instead of mama, just like you belong with us." Grace's eyes burned. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." Downstairs, Jake was waiting. He'd shaved, wore a clean shirt, his hat was in his hands. He looked at Grace and stopped breathing. "You look—" he started, then stopped. "Plain," Grace supplied. "No." His voice was rough. "You look right." Something in Grace's chest cracked open just a little. The ride to town was quiet. The twins chattered, but Jake and Grace said nothing. There was too much to say, and no way to say it. The church came into view. Grace's hands clenched in her lap. We can still turn back, Jake said quietly. No, we can't. Grace, we're doing this. For the girls. For the ranch. For us. He nodded once. All right then. They climbed down from the wagon. The church doors were open. Inside, Grace could see people gathering. Too many people. The entire town come to witness or judge or both. Ready. Jake offered his arm. Grace took it. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked up the steps together. The twins ran ahead, excited. Grace's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Inside the church was packed. Every pew full. Every face turned to watch them enter. The whispers started immediately. Look at her. He's actually going through with it. Those poor children. Grace kept her chin up, kept walking. Jake's arm was solid under her hand. They reached the front. The Reverend stood there, his face carefully neutral. Jake, Miss Winters. Reverend, Jake said curtly, shall we begin? The sooner the better. The Reverend opened his Bible. Grace barely heard the words. She was too aware of the crowd behind them, too aware of the weight of their judgment. Do you, Jacob Hartford, take this woman? I do. The Reverend blinked. I haven't finished. I do, Jake repeated. Yes, I take her. Let's move on. Grace almost smiled. Do you, Grace Winters, take this man? I do. The Reverend sighed. Very well. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you. Wait. Everyone turned. Abigail Fletcher stood up in her pew. There's something that needs to be said, Abigail announced, before this travesty is made permanent. Jake's jaw clenched. Sit down, Abigail. I will not. This woman came to our town with nothing. No references. No family. No past. And we're supposed to just accept her. Yes, Jake said flatly. Well, I won't. Abigail turned to the congregation. We all know what she is. A woman too desperate to be choosy. Too... enough. A new voice. Old. Firm. A woman stood up in the back. Grace didn't know her, but she wore black and carried herself like someone who'd survived hard years. Abigail Fletcher, the woman said, you've talked enough. Mrs. Cooper, this doesn't concern... It concerns all of us, because you're speaking for this town and I didn't give you permission. Mrs. Cooper walked forward, leaning on a cane. I came to this territory 40 years ago, alone, widowed, with nothing but a trunk and a prayer. And you know what this town did? Silence. They helped me. Mrs. Cooper continued. They gave me work. They gave me dignity. They didn't ask about my past or judge my present. They let me build a life. She turned to Grace. What's your name, girl? Grace. Grace Winters. Grace. Mrs. Cooper nodded. I've seen you at the Mercantile. Seen you working that ranch. Seen those girls smile again. That's all I need to know. She turned to face the congregation. We're supposed to be a community. That means we support each other, not tear each other down because we're scared or jealous or small-minded. Jealous, Abigail sputtered. Of her? Yes, Mrs. Cooper said simply. Because Jake Hartford chose her, and you wanted him to choose differently. The church erupted in whispers. Abigail's face went scarlet. That's a lie. Is it Mrs.? Is. Cooper's voice was steel. You've been circling that man like a vulture since his wife died. And when he chose someone else, you couldn't stand it. How dare you? I dare because I'm old, and I don't care what you think anymore. Mrs. Cooper turned to the Reverend. Finish the ceremony, now. The Reverend looked shaken, but nodded. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the... Jake turned to Grace. His eyes asked a question. She nodded. He kissed her, quick, chaste. But his hand cupped her face gently, and in that moment Grace felt seen. The twins cheered. A few people clapped uncertainly. Most just stared. Jake and Grace turned to face the congregation. united. "Thank you all for coming," Jake said, his voice carrying through the church. "My wife and I appreciate your time." My wife. The words hung in the air. They walked down the aisle together. The crowd parted. Some faces were kind. Most were not. Grace didn't care. She kept her head high, her hand in Jake's. Outside, Mrs. Cooper was waiting by their wagon. "Thank you," Grace said. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." Mrs. Cooper smiled. "Welcome to town, Grace Hartford. Don't let the bastards grind you down." Grace blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. Mrs. Cooper winked, then walked away. Jake helped Grace into the wagon. The twins piled in, still buzzing with excitement. "That was amazing," Lucy said. "Mrs. Cooper said bastards in church. Don't repeat that," Jake said automatically. But she did. Jake started the wagon. As they pulled away, Grace looked back at the church. People were filing out, talking, gesturing. The gossip would be vicious. She didn't care. She was Grace Hartford now. Wife, mother, home. The word felt strange and fragile and impossibly precious. "You all right?" Jake asked quietly. Grace turned to face forward. The prairie stretched before them, white and vast and full of possibility. "Yes," she said. "I think I am." And for the first time in her life, she meant it. That night, Grace stood in her room staring at the bed she'd slept in for weeks. Her room. Except it wasn't anymore, was it? She was married now. Mrs. Hartford. The word felt foreign in her mouth. A soft knock on the door made her turn. "Come in." Jake opened the door part way, didn't step inside. "Just wanted to say goodnight." "Oh." They stood there awkward. The marriage was legal, but unconsummated. Real, but not real. Grace didn't know what she was supposed to do, what he expected. "I'll be downstairs if you need anything," Jake said. "You're sleeping downstairs." Seemed right, for now. He shifted his weight. "Unless you want—" "No, I mean yes. Downstairs is fine. Good." Jake nodded. "Good night then, Grace." "Good night, Jake." He closed the door. Grace sat on the bed, her heart still racing. She was married to a man she barely knew. A good man, but still. What had she done? The next morning came too early. Grace woke to the twins jumping on her bed. "You're married," Lucy sang. "You're really our mama now." "Not mama," Grace said automatically. "You had a mama. I'm just—" "You're Grace," Rose said. "But you're ours now. That's what matters." Grace pulled them close, breathing in their warmth. "Yes, I'm yours." Downstairs, Jake was already making coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept much either. "Morning," he said. "Morning." They moved around each other carefully, like strangers learning a new dance. Grace made breakfast. Jake fed the horses. The twins chattered about the wedding, about Mrs. Cooper, about how Abigail's face had turned so red. Everything was the same. Everything was different. A week passed. Grace fell back into the rhythm of work, but now there was a ring on her finger. She'd catch herself staring at it, this simple band of silver that Jake had bought in town. Proof that she belonged somewhere. The town's reaction was swift and cruel. When Grace went to the mercantile for supplies, conversations stopped. Women turned away. The shopkeeper served her, but wouldn't meet her eyes. "That'll be $2, he said, not looking at her. Grace counted out the money. Her hands were steady, even though her stomach churned. Behind her, she heard whispers. "Trapped him with those girls." Poor Jake. What choice did he have? Give it 6 months. He'll regret it. Grace took her packages and walked out head high. But the words followed her home like ghosts. That night, Jake found her sitting on the porch in the cold. "You'll freeze out here," he said. "I don't mind." He sat beside her. "Heard you went to town today." "News travels fast." "It does." He was quiet for a moment. "They talked to you. No, but they talked about me. What'd they say? Grace almost lied, then decided against it. That I trapped you, that you'll regret marrying me. Jake's jaw tightened. I don't regret it. You might. Eventually. Grace. He turned to face her. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a man who makes promises lightly. I married you. That means something to me. Obligation. Partnership. Grace looked at him. His face was shadowed but sincere. You don't have to pretend this is what you wanted. No, I don't, but I'm not pretending. He stood, offered his hand. Come inside, it's too cold out here. She took his hand. Let him pull her up. His grip was warm, solid. Jake, she said as they reached the door. Yeah. Thank you for defending me, even when I'm not there. You're my wife, he said simply. That's what I do. 2 weeks after the wedding trouble arrived with the spring thaw. Grace was hanging laundry when she saw riders approaching. 3 of them. She recognized one immediately, Marshall Webb. Her stomach dropped. Jake! He emerged from the barn, saw the riders, his face going hard. Take the girls inside. Jake. Inside, now. Grace ran to the house. The twins were playing with their dolls by the fire. Girls upstairs, stay in your room. But why? Now. Something in Grace's voice made them obey without argument. Grace watched from the window as the marshal dismounted, flanked by 2 men she didn't recognize. Mr. Hartford, the marshal said. Marshal. Jake's voice was flat. What do you want? Just checking in, making sure everything's appropriate here. You already got what you wanted. We're married, legal. So I heard. The marshal glanced toward the house. Mind if I speak with your wife? Yes, I do mind. Mr. Hartford. My wife is busy. You got something to say it to me. One of the other men stepped forward. He wore a suit too fine for ranch country. I'm Attorney Morrison. I represent Mrs. Abigail Fletcher. Jake's hands clenched. Of course you do. Mrs. Fletcher has continued concerns about the welfare of your daughters. She's filed a formal petition with the territorial court to investigate your household. On what grounds? On the grounds that your wife is an unknown quantity. No verifiable past, no references, no family. For all we know, she could be a criminal, a fugitive. Grace's blood ran cold. She stepped out onto the porch. Grace, go inside, Jake said. No. She walked down the steps. If he's going to accuse me, I deserve to face it. Morrison looked her up and down, dismissive. Mrs. Hartford, can you provide documentation of your previous residence references from former employers? I was married. I didn't work. And your husband's family? Can they vouch for your character? Grace's throat tightened. No. No, they won't? Or no, they can't? They won't, Grace said quietly. They blamed me for my husband's death. Morrison's eyebrows rose. Did you kill your husband? He died of fever. I nursed him. It wasn't enough. How convenient. A dead husband who can't defend himself. A family that won't speak for you. Morrison turned to the marshal. This woman could be anyone. She could be dangerous. She's not dangerous, Jake said, his voice deadly quiet. She's my wife, and if you continue this harassment, I'll file charges of my own. On what grounds? Morrison smiled. We're simply concerned citizens. You're Abigail Fletcher's attack dogs, Jake shot back. And you're trespassing. The marshal held up his hands. Now, Jake, let's all stay calm. I am calm. But I'm also done. You want to investigate my household? Get a warrant. Otherwise, get off my land. Morrison exchanged glances with the marshal. Very well. But this isn't over, Mr. Hartford. If there's anything untoward in your wife's past, we'll find it. Look all you want, Jake said. You won't find anything. But Grace saw the doubt flicker in his eyes. Just for a moment. Just long enough to cut. The men mounted their horses and rode away. Jake stood there watching until they disappeared. Then he turned to Grace. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Tell you what? That your husband's family blamed you, that they think you're responsible. Would it have changed anything?" "I don't know, maybe." Grace's heart cracked. "You're having doubts." "No, I'm having questions. There's a difference." "Is there?" Grace's voice shook. "Because it sounds like you're wondering if maybe Abigail's right. Maybe I am hiding something." "Are you?" The question hung between them like a blade. Grace's eyes burned. "My husband died. I tried to save him. I failed. His family needed someone to blame, and I was convenient. That's the truth, the whole truth. But if you don't believe me, I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I saw your face, Jake. When Morrison mentioned my past, you doubted me." I was surprised. That's different than doubting. "Is it?" Grace turned away. "I thought I'd found somewhere safe, somewhere I could finally stop running. But maybe I was wrong." "Grace, I need to be alone." She walked to the barn before he could stop her. Inside, she pressed her back against the wall and let the tears come. Silent. Hot. Angry. She'd been a fool. Again. Thinking this could work. Thinking Jake could trust her without proof, without references, without anything but her word. But why should he? The whole town thought she was a liar. A schemer. Why should her husband be different? She stayed in the barn until her tears dried and her breathing steadied. Then she walked back to the house. Jake was on the porch waiting. "I'm sorry," he said before she could speak. Grace stopped. "For what? For doubting you. Even for a second. You're right. I saw Morrison twist your words, and I let it plant a seed." He stepped closer. "But Grace, I know you. Not your past, but you. And the woman I know wouldn't hurt anyone. You don't know me. Not really. We've known each other a few weeks. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you love my daughters like they're your own. I know you stayed through a blizzard and saved my cattle and asked for nothing in return." His voice was fierce. "That's who you are, and that's all I need to know." Grace wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it hurt. "What if they find something?" she whispered. "What if there's some record, some document that makes me look guilty? Then we'll deal with it, together. You say that now, but when the whole town turns against you, when keeping me costs you everything?" "Grace." He took her shoulders gently. "I'm not afraid of the town. I'm afraid of losing you. Of you running because you think I'll give up on you. Don't run, please." She searched his face, saw sincerity, saw fear that matched her own. "I don't know how to stay," she admitted. "I've been running so long." "Then learn with me. We'll figure it out together." Grace nodded, not trusting her voice. Jake pulled her into a hug. Careful, tentative, but real. Over his shoulder, Grace saw the twins watching from the window. Their faces were scared. She pulled away. "The girls." They heard. Probably. They went inside together. The twins were sitting on the stairs trying to look innocent. "We weren't listening," Lucy said immediately. "We were just sitting here," Rose added. Jake sat on the step below them. Grace joined him. The twins climbed into their laps, one on each. "Are you going away?" Rose asked Grace, her voice small. "No, sweetheart, I'm staying." "Promise," Lucy demanded. "I promise." "What if those men come back?" Rose asked. "Then we'll deal with it," Jake said. "As a family." "Because we're a family now," Lucy said, making sure. "Really and truly." "Really and truly," Grace said. The twins relaxed against them. Grace felt Jake's arm come around her shoulders, felt the weight of his daughters in her lap, and thought maybe, just maybe, she could learn to stop running. The investigation began in earnest the next week. Morrison sent letters to Pennsylvania, to every town Grace had passed through, asking questions, digging for dirt. The town watched and waited. The whispers grew louder. Grace tried to keep working, keep living, but the pressure was suffocating. Every trip to town meant more stares, more whispers. Even Sam Cooper, the friendly store owner, seemed nervous around her now. "I'm sorry, Grace," he said one afternoon, wrapping her purchases quickly. "It's just, well, people are talking. Let them talk. But if you could just explain where you came from, maybe it would help. I don't owe anyone an explanation. I know, but the town, they're scared of what they don't know." Grace paid and left. Outside, a group of women stood talking. They fell silent as she passed. "Murderer," someone whispered. Grace kept walking. Don't react. Don't give them the satisfaction. But inside, she was breaking. That night she couldn't sleep. She stood at her window, staring at the dark prairie, feeling trapped. She'd thought marriage would solve her problems. Instead, it had multiplied them. A soft knock startled her. "Grace? You awake?" "Yes." Jake opened the door. He was in his undershirt, suspenders hanging at his sides. "Couldn't sleep either?" "No." He came in, stood beside her at the window. They didn't touch but stood close. "This is my fault," Jake said. "I brought you here. Put a target on your back. You saved me. There's a difference. Did I, or did I just give you a different kind of cage?" Grace turned to face him. "Jake, if you're having regrets..." "I'm not, but you should be. You deserved better than this. Better than what? Home children who love me. A husband who defends me. A husband who can't protect you from small-minded people with too much time and too much hate." Grace reached out, touched his arm. "I've lived through worse than gossip. I'll survive this too." "You shouldn't have to survive it. You should be able to just live." "Maybe someday I will, but right now surviving is enough." Jake covered her hand with his. "You're stronger than me." "No, just more practiced." They stood there in the darkness, touching but not embracing. Two damaged people trying to figure out how to heal. "Grace," Jake said quietly. "Yes. I meant what I said at the wedding. You're my wife. That means I stand with you, no matter what Morrison finds or doesn't find. Even if it cost you everything. Even then." Grace's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because the girls need you. Because the ranch needs you." He paused. "Because I need you." It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was close. Closer than anything Grace had heard in years. "I need you too," she whispered. Jake pulled her close then. Really close. His arms came around her and she let herself lean into his strength. "We'll get through this," he said into her hair. "How do you know?" "Because we have to. Because those girls downstairs are counting on us. Because I'll be damned if I let Abigail Fletcher win." Grace almost smiled. "That's a terrible reason." "It's the best one I've got." They stood there holding each other in the dark, and Grace felt something shift. Not love. Not yet. But something like trust. Something like hope. 3 weeks later, Morrison returned. Grace was in the garden with the twins when she saw his horse approaching. "Inside," she told the girls. "But..." "Now." They obeyed. Grace stood, wiped dirt from her hands, and waited. Morrison dismounted, holding a folder. Jake emerged from the barn. "Morrison, what do you want?" "I have information. About your wife." Grace's heart stopped. Morrison opened the folder. "I corresponded with the family of one Thomas Winters, deceased. They had quite a lot to say about his widow." "I bet they did," Jake said coldly. "They claim she neglected him during his final illness. That she spent his money on herself. That she... Stop. Jake's voice cracked like a whip. I don't care what they claim. I know my wife. And I know liars when I hear them. Mr. Hartford. No. You've harassed us for weeks. You've dug through my wife's painful past trying to find something to justify Abigail Fletcher's jealousy. And you found nothing but the words of bitter people looking for someone to blame. Jake stepped forward. Now get off my land before I throw you off. Morrison's face flushed. The court will hear about this. Good. Tell them. Tell them you found nothing. Because there's nothing to find. Morrison mounted his horse. This isn't over. Yes, Jake said. It is. Morrison rode away. Jake turned to Grace. She was shaking. You didn't even read what they said, she whispered. Don't need to. I know you. That's enough. But what if... No. What ifs? Jake pulled her close. I chose you. I'm keeping you. End of story. Grace buried her face in his chest and cried. Not from fear this time. From relief. From gratitude. From something that felt dangerously like love. Inside the house, the twins watched from the window and smiled at each other. Their plan was working. Slowly, carefully, they were rebuilding their family. And nothing, not even Abigail Fletcher, was going to stop them. That night, after the girls were asleep, Grace found Jake in the kitchen. He was drinking coffee, staring at nothing. Can't sleep? She asked. Too much thinking. About Morrison? About you. Grace's heart skipped. What about me? Jake turned to face her. I've been thinking about what you said. About learning to stay. About not running. He paused. I want to try something. What? This. He crossed the space between them and kissed her. Really kissed her. Not the chaste peck from their wedding, but something real. Something that tasted like hope and fear and possibility. Grace froze for a heartbeat, then kissed him back. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. I don't know if I can love again, Jake said. Sarah took a piece of me when she died, but I want to try, with you. Grace's eyes filled. I don't know if I can either, but I want to try too. Then we'll try together. Slow, careful, no expectations. No expectations, Grace echoed. Jake kissed her forehead. Good night, Grace. Good night, Jake. She watched him climb the stairs to his room. Not their room. Not yet. But someday, maybe. Grace touched her lips, still feeling the pressure of his kiss, and smiled. She'd come west to disappear. But instead, she was learning to reappear. To be seen. To be wanted. To be loved. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. And for the first time in her life, Grace Winters Hartford thought maybe, just maybe, happy endings weren't just for fairy tales. The kiss changed something. Grace felt it in the way Jake looked at her now, in the way his hand would brush hers when he passed the salt, in the way he lingered in doorways, just to talk a moment longer. The twins noticed too. Daddy smiles more now, Rose said one morning, helping Grace knead bread. Does he? Yes. And he looks at you the way he used to look at Mama. Lucy paused, uncertain. Is that okay? Grace's hands stilled in the dough. Do you think it's okay? Both girls looked at each other, having one of their silent twin conversations. We think Mama would be happy, Rose said finally. She wouldn't want Daddy to be sad forever. And she'd like you, Lucy added. You're kind like she was. But different too. Stronger maybe. Grace's throat tightened. Your mama was strong. She raised 2 incredible daughters. She did, Rose agreed. But then she died and we needed someone else. And God sent you. Grace didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if she believed it. But the twins believed it, and that was enough. 3 days after Morrison's visit, Grace went to town alone. Jake had offered to come, but she'd refused. She couldn't hide behind him forever. If she was going to stay here, truly stay, she needed to face the town on her own terms. The Mercantile was quiet when she entered. Sam Cooper looked up from behind the counter, surprise crossing his face. "Grace, didn't expect to see you. I need supplies." Of course. He moved to help her, but his movements were nervous. "Listen about the other day what I said." "It's fine, Sam." "No, it ain't. I was a coward. Let fear make me stupid." He met her eyes. "For what it's worth, I don't believe what people are saying. Never did." "Thank you. My mother, she spoke up for you at the wedding. Told me I should do the same, but I was worried about business, about what people would think." He shook his head. "But she's right. She usually is. You're good people, Grace Hartford. And this town's been wrong about a lot of things." Before Grace could respond, the door opened. Abigail Fletcher walked in, followed by 2 other women. She stopped when she saw Grace. "Mrs. Hartford?" Abigail's voice was cold. "Still here, I see." "I live here. For now." Abigail moved to the counter, deliberately positioning herself between Grace and Sam. "Though I imagine when the territorial judge reviews Morrison's findings that may change." Grace's hands clenched, but her voice stayed steady. "Morrison didn't find anything." "Didn't he? I heard quite differently. I heard your former family had very interesting things to say about you." "They lied. Or perhaps you're lying now." Abigail turned to face her fully. "You show up out of nowhere, no past, no references, and somehow manage to trap one of the most eligible men in the territory. It's quite impressive, really." "I didn't trap anyone." "No. Then why did Jake marry you out of love?" Abigail laughed. "Please, he married you because those girls manipulated him, and now he's stuck with you." Something in Grace snapped. She stepped forward close enough to see Abigail's eyes widen slightly. "You're right about one thing," Grace said quietly. "I did show up out of nowhere. I was alone, desperate and broken. I had nothing but the clothes on my back and a past that haunted me. And Jake Hartford, a man you wanted but couldn't have looked at me and saw something worth saving." Abigail's face flushed. "That's not—" "He chose me," Grace continued. "Not because I trapped him, not because his daughters manipulated him, but because he's a good man who recognizes strength when he sees it, even when it's wrapped in pain. That's something you'll never understand, because you've never had to be strong. You've never had to survive. You've only ever had to scheme. How dare you?" "I dare because I have nothing left to lose. You've already taken everything you can from me. My reputation, my peace, my sense of safety. But you can't take my marriage. You can't take my family. And you certainly can't take my home." Grace stepped back. "So, do your worst, Abigail. Dig deeper. Spread more lies. I'll still be here, because I'm not leaving." Abigail stood there, mouth open, no words coming. The other women looked shocked. Sam was grinning behind the counter. Grace gathered her supplies paid and walked out with her head high. Outside, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely load the wagon. But she'd done it. She'd stood up to Abigail Fletcher in front of witnesses. She'd claimed her place. That was quite a speech. Grace spun around. Mrs. Cooper stood there, leaning on her cane, eyes twinkling. "You heard." "Whole town heard, I imagine. You weren't exactly quiet." Mrs. Cooper chuckled. "About time someone put that woman in her place. Been needing it for years." "I probably made things worse." "Maybe. But you also made them better, because now everyone knows you're not going anywhere. And that's what scares them most. Not your past, your permanence." Grace climbed onto the wagon. "Thank you, Mrs. Cooper, for everything. Call me Dorothy, and you're welcome, girl. Now get home to that husband of yours before he works himself to death worrying about you." Grace drove home, her heart still racing. When she arrived, Jake was in the yard pacing. He ran to the wagon when he saw her. "Where have you been? You've been gone for hours. I was about to ride into town." "I'm fine. Did anyone bother you? Say anything?" Abigail did. Jake's face darkened. "What did she say?" "Nothing I couldn't handle." Grace climbed down. "I handled it, Jake, by myself." He searched her face, saw something there that made him relax slightly. "What did you do?" "I told her the truth, that I'm staying, that she can't run me off." Grace smiled. "I think I scared her." Jake laughed, actual laughter that sounded like relief. "I bet you did." He pulled her close right there in the yard where anyone could see. "I'm proud of you. For yelling at a woman in a store. For being brave, for fighting back, for choosing to stay even when it's hard." Grace leaned into him, breathing in the smell of leather and hay and safety. "It's getting easier, the staying." "Good, because I'm getting attached to having you here." "Just attached." Jake pulled back to look at her. His eyes were serious. "More than attached. Grace, I know it's only been a few months. I know we said no expectations, but I need you to know something." Grace's heart hammered. "What?" "I'm falling in love with you. Not because I have to, not because it's convenient, but because you're you, because you make my daughters laugh, because you throw snowballs and stand up to bullies and work harder than anyone I know. Because when I think about the future, I can't imagine it without you in it." Grace's eyes burned. "Jake, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." "I do say it back." The words came out in a rush. "I love you. I think I've loved you since you told Morrison to leave without even reading what my in-laws said. Since you believed in me when no one else did. Since you kissed me in the kitchen and made me think maybe I deserved to be loved." Jake kissed her then, deep and true. And Grace felt something inside her finally unlock. The fear, the doubt, the belief that she was too much, too broken, too unworthy. She was none of those things. She was just Grace, and that was enough. A week later, the territorial judge arrived in Ridgewood. The whole town turned out for the hearing. Grace sat beside Jake in the small courthouse, the twins behind them, with Dorothy Cooper. Judge Harrison was an older man with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. He reviewed Morrison's documents, listened to Abigail's testimony about Grace's mysterious past and questionable character. Then he called Grace to the stand. "Mrs. Hartford," he said, "you've been accused of fraud, of hiding a criminal past, of manipulating your husband into marriage. How do you respond?" Grace stood. Her legs shook, but her voice didn't. "I respond that I've committed no fraud. My past is painful but not criminal. My first husband died of fever despite my best efforts to save him. His family blamed me because grief needed a target. I came west to escape that blame, to start over. I never claimed to be anything other than what I am. A widow, a woman seeking refuge, someone trying to survive." "And your marriage to Mr. Hartford?" "Was his choice. He offered me work, a place to stay. When the town objected to my presence, he offered marriage to legitimize the situation. I accepted because I'd grown to care for his daughters, for his home, for him. Not because I trapped him, because he chose me." The judge turned to Jake. "Mr. Hartford, is this accurate?" "It is, Your Honor, every word." "And you married this woman of your own free will? No coercion, no manipulation?" "None. I married her because my daughters needed a mother, and I needed a partner. And because she's the strongest, most decent person I've ever met." The judge was quiet for a long moment, reviewing papers. Then he looked up. "Mrs. Fletcher," he said, "you've wasted this court's time with baseless accusations rooted in jealousy and spite. I find no evidence of fraud, no evidence of criminal activity, and no evidence that Mrs. Hartford is anything other than a hard-working woman trying to build a life in difficult circumstances." Abigail's face went white. "But, Your Honor." "Furthermore," the judge continued, I'm fining you $50 for bringing frivolous charges and wasting territorial resources. If you continue to harass the Hartford family, I'll consider more serious penalties." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Abigail stood there humiliated before storming out. The judge banged his gavel. "Case dismissed. Mr. and Mrs. Hartford, you're free to go. And might I say, welcome to Wyoming territory, Mrs. Hartford. We need more people with your backbone." Outside, people stared as Jake and Grace walked out hand in hand. Some looked ashamed. Some looked relieved. A few even nodded in greeting. Dorothy Cooper was waiting with the twins. "Well done, both of you." "Thank you, Dorothy," Grace said. "Now get home. I imagine you have celebrating to do." The ride home was quiet. The twins chattered in the back, but Jake and Grace were silent, processing everything. At the ranch, Grace climbed down from the wagon and just stood there looking at the house. Her house. Her home. "You all right?" Jake asked. "Yes. Just realizing something." "What's that?" "I'm not running anymore. For the first time in my life, I'm staying." Jake put his arm around her. "About time." That night, after the twins were in bed, Jake found Grace on the porch. She was looking at the stars, a quilt wrapped around her shoulders. "Cold out here," he said. "I don't mind." He sat beside her, pulled her close. "I have something for you." "What?" He handed her a small wooden box. Grace opened it. Inside was a locket, simple silver engraved with flowers. "It was Sarah's," Jake said quietly. "I've been keeping it for the girls for when they're older. But I think she'd want you to have it now. Not to replace her, but to welcome you. To make you part of this family truly." Grace's hands trembled. "Jake, I can't." "Yes, you can. Open it." She did. Inside were two small photographs. Sarah on one side, smiling and young. On the other side, a space waiting to be filled. "For our family," Jake said. "Past and future. Together." Grace couldn't speak. She just held the locket and cried while Jake held her. "I love you," he whispered. "Not because I have to, not because it's expected, but because you make me remember how to live instead of just survive." "I love you too," Grace said through her tears. "You and those girls. You gave me something I thought I'd never have again." "What's that?" "A home, a family, a reason to stop running." Jake kissed her forehead. "You gave us that too. We were just existing before you came, going through motions. But you reminded us how to be a family, how to laugh, how to hope." They sat there under the stars, wrapped in each other's warmth, and Grace felt something settle inside her. Peace. Belonging. Home. The next morning, Grace woke to find Jake's side of the bed warm but empty. She smiled. His side of the bed. He'd moved into her room last night, careful and tender, asking permission for every touch. They'd made love slowly, carefully, two broken people, learning how to be whole together. And afterward, Grace had fallen asleep in his arms, feeling safer than she'd ever felt in her life. Downstairs, she found Jake making breakfast while the twins set the table. They looked up when she entered. "Morning, Mama," Lucy said. Grace froze. "What did you call me?" Lucy bit her lip. "Is it okay to call you Mama? We thought since you and Daddy are really married now, and you love us and we love you. It's more than okay." Grace said, her voice breaking. "It's perfect." Both girls ran to her, and Grace caught them, held them tight. Over their heads, she met Jake's eyes. He was smiling. "Family breakfast?" he asked. "Family breakfast," Grace agreed. They ate together, talking and laughing, planning the day ahead. Grace looked around the table at these three people who'd chosen her, who'd fought for her, who'd loved her when she couldn't love herself. She'd come to Wyoming as Grace Winter's widow, outcast, broken. She was leaving breakfast as Grace Hartford, wife, mother, whole. 3 months later, spring arrived in earnest. The snow melted, revealing green underneath. Flowers pushed through the earth. Life returning after a long, hard winter. Grace stood in the garden hands in the dirt planting seeds. The twins worked beside her, chattering about everything and nothing. Jake came out of the barn leading a new foal. "Girls, come see!" Lucy and Rose squealed and ran over. Grace watched them fuss over the baby horse, watched Jake smile at them with pure love. Dorothy Cooper rode up on her wagon. "Afternoon, Grace." "Dorothy, what brings you out here?" "Wanted to give you this." She handed Grace a package wrapped in brown paper. Grace opened it. Inside was a photograph. The whole town gathered in front of the church, and right in the center, clear as day, were Jake, Grace, and the twins. "Took that last Sunday," Dorothy said. "Thought you should have it. Proof that you belong here, that you're part of this community, whether some of them like it or not." Grace stared at the photograph. She was smiling. Really smiling. And so was Jake. And the twins looked happier than she'd ever seen them. "Thank you," Grace whispered. "Thank you," Dorothy said, "for reminding this town what courage looks like, for showing us that second chances are possible, for proving that family isn't just blood, it's choice." After Dorothy left, Grace went inside and put the photograph on the mantel, right in the center where everyone could see. That night, after the twins were asleep, Jake found Grace in their room. She was holding the locket he'd given her, looking at the pictures inside. "Thinking about Sarah?" he asked. "Thinking about all of us. How we all lost people we loved. How we all thought we'd never be whole again. But here we are." Jake sat beside her. "Here we are." Grace closed the locket. "I never got to thank her for raising such incredible daughters, for loving you so well that you knew how to love again, for making this family possible." "I think she knows," Jake said softly. "I think she sent you to us, because she knew we needed you as much as you needed us." Grace leaned into him. "Do you really believe that?" "I don't know, but I like to think so. I like to think she's watching somewhere, glad that her family is happy again, glad that her daughters have a mother who loves them, glad that I found someone who makes me want to live instead of just survive. I want that too, for all of us." Jake pulled her close. "Then we'll have it. We'll build a life here. We'll raise these girls. We'll grow old together. And when people ask how we met, we'll tell them the truth." "What's that?" "That two little girls knew what their father couldn't see. That love sometimes looks like mercy. That family is built, not born. That second chances exist for those brave enough to take them." Grace kissed him. "That's a good story." "It's our story, and I wouldn't change a word of it." 5 years later, Grace stood in the garden, watching her daughters play. Lucy and Rose were 12 now, tall and strong and beautiful. And between them ran 2 more children. A boy 3 years old with Jake's gray eyes, and a baby girl just learning to walk with Grace's dark hair. Jake came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about? How far we've come, how different everything is." "Better different, or worse different?" Grace turned in his arms. "Better, so much better." The town had changed too. Abigail Fletcher had moved away 2 years ago, unable to live with the shame of her defeat. New families had moved in. The church had a new reverend who preached love instead of judgment. And Grace Hartford was known not as the woman who came from nowhere, but as the woman who'd helped build a school, who doctored sick children, who opened her home to anyone who needed help. She was known not for her past, but for her present. Not for what she'd survived, but for how she'd thrived. "I never thought I'd be happy," Grace said quietly. "Never thought I deserved it. And now I know I do. We all do. Happiness isn't something you earn. It's something you choose. And I choose this, every day. I choose you. I choose our children. I choose this life." Jake kissed her. "Good. Because you're stuck with us. I wouldn't have it any other way." That evening, the whole family gathered for supper. 7 of them now. Crowded around a table Jake had built bigger to accommodate their growing family. They said grace, thanking God for food and health and each other. And as Grace looked around the table at these people she loved more than breath, she thought about that day at the train station, when she'd been alone, desperate, certain she'd never be wanted again. She thought about two little girls pointing at her and saying, "We want this one." She thought about a man who'd listened to his daughters and given her a chance. She thought about herself, broken and scared, choosing to stay instead of run. And she knew with absolute certainty that every hard moment had been worth it. Every tear, every fear, every doubt had led her here. To this table, to this family, to this life. She'd come to Wyoming to disappear. But instead, she'd learned the most important lesson of all. You can't disappear when you're loved. You can only become more fully yourself, more fully seen, more fully alive. And Grace Winters Hartford, once called too wide to wed, too broken to save, too much to bear, was now simply this: a wife, a mother, a woman who'd found her place in the world and claimed it with both hands. She was home. Finally, truly, completely home. And she was never letting go.
Jeffrey,
Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in Grace's journey. And thank you for reminding us all that worth isn't something that needs to be earned. It simply is. No matter what the world says, no matter what labels they try to pin on you, you are enough. You have always been enough. And somewhere, someone is waiting to choose you just as you are. Subscribe for more stories that matter, and remember, the smallest voices sometimes speak the loudest truth, and the bravest thing you can do is stay when everything tells you to run.